What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Verse Crypto channel. We have another awesome live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about a really cool project that's coming to everyone's favorite layer one blockchain, the Pulsechain. But before we get on and talk about our special guest, I got to bring a homie, the man, the myth, the legend. This guy is one of the founders of the PRC Pantheon. He's an ambassador to the Pulse Reflection Token. And most importantly, he is a pDAI OG. I want to bring to the stage Holonomics. What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Hello. How are you? Thank you so much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, a lot of stuff's going on in the market. You know, pDAI strong as ever. Community's growing. New project utility coming in. What's your overall opinions about what's going on in the market right now?
Well, I think it's a good time to start loading up. Seems like it's a good little correction time, but it's nothing, bad or anything scary, anything. It's just kind of how markets go, and ready for the next round. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we got a live stream with a project coming to the Pulsechain. They're getting into interoperability. They have a really cool utility so that you can actually bridge from, I believe it was like 6 or 7 blockchains right now, and they're growing and expanding. And what's really cool is the PRC Pantheon's getting involved. So I want to bring to the stage Wally from Cryptolink. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, your team has been making some awesome noise, especially on the Pulsechain. You guys got a really cool project. There's so much utility, so much to unpack here. And I remember we set up a live stream together, and then we brought on Holonomics. So, you know, this is probably going to be a live stream with a lot of alpha, a lot of information, and a lot of really awesome questions. So absolutely stoked for this. So to start off, Holonomics, we got PRC Pantheon. Can you give us a little breakdown on what that is and how it relates to Cryptolink today?
Yeah, absolutely. So PRC Pantheon's the NFT collection that I started back in, gosh, I should probably know the date, May, June time. And the whole point of it was to help boost the different PRCs. That's why I came to Pulsechain. I fell in love with all the different token copies, really liked what was going on in that ecosystem. And I just recognized that what those tokens needed more than anything was liquidity. So the whole point of this NFT collection originally was just supposed to, provide liquidity to these tokens. And we also offer some staking rewards to people. And then kind of what ended up happening is we obviously loaded up on pDAI early. So we have quite a bit in liquidity pools. We have about 10% in the pDAI wrap PLS liquidity pool. So we are supporting the different PRCs that way. And we have about 50,000 right now in our staking pool, which will be distributed to all of our holders. So that's exciting. We just sold out recently. But beyond all that, the point of this call and what we're talking about Cryptolink is we decided to diversify. Instead of just doing liquidity, the holders and the community voted to, what is it? Can you guys hear that, by the way? Can you guys hear that weird sound?
Yeah, it's a little static sound.
Yeah, I think I got new headphones. Let me see if I can move them around over here. Not sure what the deal is with that. Might need to get a different headset. I might need to come back. But anyways, yeah, I don't know what the heck that is. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
But anyways, interesting. Anyways, let me get back to this, and then I'll come back and finish after I get a new headset. But essentially, what the community decided to do and vote on was to support this Cryptolink bridge, which is an instant bridge. One of our community members brought it to us, and they were like, "Hey, Pulsechain needs a better bridge, right? The bridge that we have right now, it's just a normal bridge, takes forever." And with a lot of crypto people, it's it's ETH only. There are some other ones and stuff that are just not as big as well. It doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people. Especially the Binance degens. That's where this particular friend came from. He's like, "Hey, we need a faster bridge from Binance. They like stuff fast." And Pulse, and then he told us about Cryptolink, which is a bridge. I was like, "There's no way it's seconds." He was like, "Dude, you got to try it. It's literally super fast." And so then I did, and I was floored. It literally took 10 seconds for me to get to AVAX to Matic, which is nuts. Like literally AVAX on Avalanche to Matic took 10 seconds. I was sold at that point. looked into how we got a validator, and then, you know, kind of set up all the rewards and, you know, the projections. Community decided to do it. So we moved some of our liquidity funds and some of the weird kind of off-brand pools that we had, like USDT and DAI, weird ones. We moved those into this now. And so we are supporting, and then all of the funds that we are getting, we're going to be using 60% of those to go back into liquidity. So we're just diversifying our income streams to support liquidity. And then 40% will be going into staking for the community as well. So really, that's how we're involved. You know, I just kind of wanted to talk about that. Everything we wanted to do with the PRC Pantheon was to support the PRCs, and onboarding people into Pulsechain is a really good way to do that. So we're excited to bring it on. Been really thrilled with the team and working with everybody. Wally's been great. Cletus, so everybody over there. So really excited to hear more about it, and well, for you guys to hear more about it. And I think we're going to be launching tomorrow. So very excited to use it and getting out of Pulsechain with it.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love the PRC Pantheon. Full disclosure, I do own a few of these NFTs, and I love the design. I love the mission behind it. I love how we're adding utility, and I think we're going to have a very fruitful future behind this collection. So shout out to you, Holonomics. Now, Wally, going back to you, my man. So, you know, welcome onto the Verse Crypto channel. And what I like to do with every guest is, you know, who are you? What's your background? And when did you first get into cryptocurrency?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm Wally. I do marketing, branding, media, content, everything in that field over at Cryptolink. That's kind of my sphere over there. My background is a little bit of everything. So I come from, my education is in political science and history. So I have a bachelor's in political science with a minor in history. Right after that, I went and coached college football. Immediately after graduating with my bachelor's, I went and coached at a small Division II school in Michigan. And I did that for 2 years before COVID hit. And then I came down south, like I was telling you backstage. And so now I'm living down south in the States, and I was coaching high school ball and just doing some local work down here before I got into crypto. Actually, I was kind of looking for the next thing. And Cletus came to me in the spring of it would have been 22. So it was about a year and a half ago, just about right about now. And before then, I'd kind of, you know, dabbled in Bitcoin, Ethereum, only on Coinbase, you know, things you could do on Coinbase. And that was essentially it. I had a little app on my phone, right? That's all I knew. That's all I did. And I wasn't into it at all. Cletus and I went to college together up in Michigan. We were roommates for 3 years. So we're very close friends. And he was telling me about all this crypto stuff he was getting involved in. And, you know, obviously this was it was on the downturn from, you know, the top in November 21, but things were still decently good in the crypto world at that time. So he was talking very favorably, and I'm like, okay, I got to get involved. I got to figure out what's going on at the very minimum. So one thing led to another. I bought my first AVAX, I think, at $68 or something, which is a big LOL to anybody that knows what the AVAX price is right now. So RIP to that AVAX coin. But yeah, I got involved, and the one project that Cletus was heavily involved in at the time was Printer Financial, which is now Cryptolink. And he was actually involved on a more in-depth ambassador level. And so he got me kind of in the mill over there, and I started to understand kind of what a lot of DeFi was. And I wasn't overly interested in a lot of other DeFi stuff that was going on, especially tomb forks and things like that. But then I saw what Atlas had built with the paper token, its ability to instantly go between chains. And I didn't know exactly what was going on at the time, but I knew something was going on, right? I knew that there was, okay, well, nobody else is doing this and nobody else can do this. So how this guy knows how to do something pretty cool. So I remember at the time, I was getting into, you know, editing, you know, graphics, things like that, because I also run a private coaching business on the side in the off season for quarterbacks, right? So that's always good in that business to be able to push out your own content and things like that. So I've been messing with that type of stuff, just got the Adobe suite at that time, all that good stuff. So it's like, well, you know, here's what I can do for Printer Financial at the time is make some graphics, do some videos, things like that, and try to help out from a community aspect. And one thing leads to another. And now, you know, I'm part of the exec team as, you know, the marketing branding guy. And we did the switch from Printer Financial to Cryptolink last October. Decided to take it a little bit more serious and decide to essentially build an enterprise level company as opposed to, you know, a DeFi project, I guess, if you will. We want to be an infrastructure piece. That's kind of what we wanted to build. So that's kind of the story. Yeah.
Okay. No, phenomenal story. Actually, believe it or not, we had a offline conversation. I was actually in Printer Financial day one. I got into this project right when it launched, and I thought it was really cool because you guys were really experimenting with cross-chaining protocols, getting to arbitrage pools, and really developing this really cool bridge. Now, before we talk about that little piece of history, let's just really briefly talk. What is CryptoLink, very briefly, and what type of utility are you going to be bringing to the Pulsechain?
Absolutely. So I guess the quick 2-minute pitch to keep it really short for you, right? What we built is a cross-chain infrastructure that can send and receive messages between the blockchains very quickly. And we did this without having to build our own intermediary blockchain or anything that becomes a scaling issue down the road as you connect to more chains. That's what CryptoLink is at its core, right? We're an instant messaging infrastructure between blockchains. Now, what we built on top of that is one of the endless things you could build on top of it, essentially, which is the paper token. That's a proof of concept of what CryptoLink does, how CryptoLink works. And what paper does is paper is instantly burned and minted between the blockchains when you want to send it from one blockchain to another. It's a one-to-one value there. And the way it does that is with the CryptoLink messaging. CryptoLink on one chain tells CryptoLink on another chain that, yes, we burnt this, it's confirmed, you can mint this on the other chain. So that's what we did with the paper token. On top of the paper token, we decided, hey, why don't we take it a step further, since, you know, it's going to take a little bit of incentive to get people to build on top of this really cool technology. Well, let's just do it first. So we took the paper token. We're like, how do we make this even simpler? So, well, instead of making people go and find out how to buy the paper token, do all this nonsense, and then bridge it, we just built any-to-any.io, which is any token to any token swap. You click the drop down, choose the chain, choose the token for the source, and then do the same thing for the destination. Hit swap, and it's going to do all of the swaps for you, bridge it across through our network instantly, and you're going to get that swap incredibly fast. And that's, I believe, probably what Hodlnomics was talking about. He probably used any-to-any. So that's what we built on top of it. That's what we're bringing to Pulsechain. We're bringing widgetized versions of that to anybody that wants to deploy it, like PRC Pantheon or another project like PulseSwap or something like that. So anybody on Pulse can theoretically deploy that any-to-any in a widget form on their site. And not only can they do that, but they'll earn 5% of what we make in fees. They'll earn that back to their wallet in PLS token. So that's, in short, what we built. But the grand scope is you can build anything on top of what we've done and what we've created. But we just built a token swap as that proof of concept. And because most people like to swap tokens.
Absolutely. No, I love your guys' approach, especially this is a truly decentralized approach to cross-chain interoperability. Most bridges have keys to them. They have bridge validators. They're actually centralized. Solana, a lot of their hacks happen at the bridge. And you're starting to see more and more that this interoperability future is going to be very well needed. And some people think it's going to be like an internet protocol like you see on your computer, on your web browser. But it can also occur through these bridge tokens for exchange of value. So I think what you guys are doing is really cool. It's a very new concept, and it's going to be very big in this next bull market, which is why I'm excited to jump into it today. Now, taking a step back, you got on the Printer Financial. You guys are a tomb fork. You started printing tokens like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you guys leave the tomb fork past, and why'd you rebrand and move on to something? And on top of that, what are some lessons you learned from this experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the base level, the reason it was ever set up with a tomb fork model in the first place wasn't necessarily to be a tomb fork and for the end of time. It had an end of emissions schedule, just like every other tomb fork does at the end of the day. But the purpose was to be a bridging token. It just didn't have a ton of direction at that time, right? And there is obviously the problem with that model is early on, you just have messed up charts and things like that. Things work out in the long run when you cut emissions and you straighten yourself out, as long as you do have something real behind it, like we built. But the moral of the story, I think, was that it definitely creates an odd conversation like we're having right now, right? Where you're like, oh, well, why did you even do that? Well, the reason we did that was we didn't want to do an ICO or token sale. And that was Atlas's decision, our founder. And he just made that decision because, again, he was working essentially solo at that time. He had a small group of people from a few other projects. And you could loosely say team. Again, some of them are still in our community, great folks. They just weren't, there wasn't a ton of direction. So he didn't know really how to do it ICO the right way or a token pre-sale. Also was a little nervous about the regulations and the legal problems that kind of come with that, rightfully so. And so we figured the tomb fork model was the best way to get the paper tokens into the ecosystem in the first place and just make it some, a fair system and use that tomb structure just to essentially get to the end goal. And that was what we were doing. We ended up cutting emissions on January 1st of this last year, so 2023. On New Year's Day, we cut emissions and we cut them early. That was a bit of a surprise. We kind of told our community about a week before. We're like, hey, there's really no need to do this anymore at this point because we've now switched over to what we're doing now. And so we just cut the emissions. But that kind of was a little bit separate from this branding swap from Printer Financial to Cryptolink because we did have that model still running under the Cryptolink name for about 3 months there. The branding shift happened in October of 23. And the first talks of that were in August of 22. And the first talks of that were in August of 22, where Atlas was like, hey, if you want to rebrand it, you're welcome to. And I was like, really? I didn't think we were allowed to, but that's cool. Let's do that because let's turn this thing into something that, larger companies, larger businesses can look at and respect and say, hey, this is actually a software company that we can integrate with.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome points. Good stuff. All right. So you did a great job explaining your background, the history and whatnot. And so one thing I really want to get into, the ink and paper token, two main tokens, paper token, exchange of value, cross chain, ink token. What is this?
Ink token. So that was from the tomb fork model that comes from that emissions model, right? And again, I'm not a DeFi connoisseur by any means. Again, I kind of got into DeFi late in the game there in the last run. So I can't explain to you the intricacies of a tomb model, but it was our, I guess you'd call it a governance token at the time. And so you'd stake it and you could get paper that way. And we would emit paper to ink stakers. And then ink stakers at the time did have voting rights because we did have governance. At the time, we were a lot more decentralized from a decision-making perspective. Now we're decentralized from an actual tech perspective. But at the time, we were decentralized from a exec team and decision-making perspective, kind of taking things to vote. And so we ended up kind of going away from that model so we could make some, executive decisions as a team to push this thing forward in a certain direction and ride it out. So that's what Ink originally was. Now we decided to keep it, instead of just abandoning it and kind of telling everybody to, buzz off if they had it, just because we wanted to get rid of it or we didn't have anything to do with it. We decided we'd give it a little bit of something, and Ink native LP gets 5% of our rewards back instead of like the validators get the 20% cut, the paper LP providers get the 10% cut, and then we give Ink LP providers 5%, just as like hey, we don't want to throw the token down the gutter because a bunch of our really diehard community members still hold the token, and it's it wouldn't be doing them any right by just getting rid of it. So that's essentially where Ink comes from.
Okay, so paper, exchange of value, main utility token, ink is like the governor's token. So if I recall, the paper token goes from blockchain to blockchain through bridging, and then the ink token, it's a separate token on each blockchain capped at 100,000, and you can't transfer them from each blockchain. Did I get that right?
Right. And so Ink is actually, it's less than 100,000 on a few chains, because again, the 100,000 number came from the tomb fork model, but it's actually less than 100,000 on some chains, because when we cut emissions off, obviously paper native stakers weren't getting any Ink anymore or anything like that. So that got cut off a little bit early as well. Ink can go to different chains, even though we said it was never going to. Atlas put his foot down for a long time, said Ink was never going to be bridgeable, and then kind of gave into the community a little bit when we started launching on some more chains. And the way that works is you can warp your Ink from any existing chain that you have it on to any new chain in preparation for the launch. Once the chain launch happens and the chain actually goes live and you can use any to any with that blockchain, the ink warp turns off and you can no longer send ink there anymore. It's a one-way warp and it's 2 to 1. So every 2 ink you send, you get 1 ink on the new chain. And it's just a way for people to, again, maybe get out. We do exist on some chains that, dare I say, I would call them dead at this point, just from the last market and things like that. One of those, again, bridge hacks that killed the chain that we could talk about is Harmony, right? That's one of the chains that is essentially dead at this point. That chain has almost no volume. I don't know if it has any volume anymore. I know the team's kind of walked away from the blockchain aspect. They're doing AI stuff. So anybody who has Harmony ink from back in the day can warp that ink to a new chain when we're launching there to kind of, again, it's 2 to 1, but it's all about the percentage of ink you hold up in relativity to how much is on the chain, right? So it's just a way for people to get out of maybe some unfortunate ink situations they might have got themselves into in the last run with like maybe a Harmony situation or Oasis Sapphire chain, which is what we're on, or maybe it's Emerald, but they're now sunsetting that, right? So anybody who has ink on that chain, eventually they're turning that chain off. So you might want to warp that, so that's kind of the reason we did that.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Now let's get into more of the nuts and the bolts of like the fee structures and the LPs and stuff like that. And this is where this is going to bring a lot of what the PRC Pantheon is jumping into. So could you give us a breakdown of how that fee structure works? So let's say I want to go from Avalanche to pDAI on Pulsechain. How are those fees broken down?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to get the DEX incurred fees on either side of that regardless, right? Because whenever you're going from one token on one chain to another token on another chain, you're going to have to get to paper somehow, right? Whether you're doing that or the aggregator or the any is doing that, something's getting you from one token, whatever that token may be, to paper, so then you can bridge across, and then paper to your desired token. So you are going to incur DEX fees on those swaps, and those are fees that, again, we're not charging. Those are just fees that whatever the DEX that we're on is charging. So let's say you are going AVAX to let's just say PLS, because native to native to make it easy. You're going to get the 0.3% that Trader Joe charges for the AVAX to paper swap. And then you're going to get the 0.3 that the DEX on Pulse swap probably charges. And we use 0.3 because that's generally what most DEXs charge for just an average swap. It can vary, but that's generally what they're charging. And then our fees that we're charging come in bridge portion, and that's the 0.5%. So altogether, if you're going native to native, AVAX to PLS, it's going to be a 1.1% fee. If you tacked on another swap or two on either end of that, right? So let's say it wasn't just AVAX, but you wanted a token like, let's say Joe on AVAX, and then you wanted to go to pDAI on Pulse, right? So now you have an extra step in there. It's going to incur 2 more 0.3% fees because paper is only paired with natives. And this is where this again, it gets a little complicated because it ties into the future, right? Paper deck, something that we mentioned backstage, stuff like that we can get into later in the live stream if we want to. But that'll be like the incentive of pairing with paper, right? Is you can cut that one extra 0.3% out on the cross-chain swaps. So that gets into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what's down the road. But essentially how we do our fees is it's always the DEX fees on either chain for however many swaps you're making on that chain in and out of paper. And then the cross-chain bridge portion is a 0.5%. That's what we're charging. And right now, that's what we're distributing to our validators, our LP, and all those different reward pools.
Yeah, it seems like a very complex structure, but based on what Holonomics was telling me, it's very seamless, it's very fast, and it's actually a really cool concept. So one thing I want to bring up real quick. Now, let's talk a little bit about these LPs that you were mentioning. So you have the two main LPs, which are paper native, and the native is obviously going to be the native blockchain token.
Right.
And then we got the ink in the native blockchain token. In this case will be Pulse or Ethereum. Now you can lock it for 10%. Well, you can lock it for a week, 4 weeks, 12 weeks, and 24 weeks. What's the purpose of these time stake locks?
Right. That's just to incentivize people to provide liquidity for longer, because again, we do require paper native liquidity on each chain to facilitate larger swaps, right? So we do want to incentivize liquidity and things like that, which is why we kick back rewards to our liquidity providers. So the percentages there just mean the percent of whatever your share of that. So I guess we'll break it down from starting at the top. Paper native LP. So let's just use AVAX because we were using AVAX as an example there for a second. Paper AVAX, if you provide LP to that pool gets 10% of what we drive on AVAX and revenue back as rewards. And then that 10% is divvied up amongst all of the LP providers that have staked their LP tokens on our DApp. And so you'll have a percentage of that 10% that's allocated to you. Now, depending on how long you lock your stake for, that will determine the percent of your allotted percentage that you'll get. So if you only lock for 1 week, you're not going to get the full percentage allocation of that 10% that you would have, as opposed to locking for 24 weeks, in which case every week you're going to get that full dividend division, I should say, of that 10%, I guess is the best way to say.
Gotcha. So you're doing the time locked. Well, you're basically locking the LPs for a certain amount of time so you can make sure you have enough liquidity on the blockchain, facilitate cross-chain swaps, and you also incentivize it, LP lockers. Well, you incentivize users to lock your LP so that basically makes it so the protocol can be active. Sorry, that was a word salad.
No, absolutely. And essentially, it's just the reason we have different lock periods is just to give people options, right? I mean, again, some people may not want to lock for 24 weeks, and that's okay. So we just created a scaling model there to give people a few different options.
Gotcha. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about at the bottom of this, it says, so you have a disclaimer down here talking about, enabling utility use for cross-chain. Now, the one thing I wanted to ask you about down here says all staking rewards are subject to change at any time. Could you explain what this means and what's the purpose
absolutely.
of this?
That's just the reason that's in there is simply to cover our ass, because at some point we may need to change those percentages, whether that be up or down, depending at some point, right? And that just depends on the scale of the business. It may seem scary. Absolutely. We will never cut it at all. We're not going to just cut it to zero or anything like that. That would make no sense for us anyways, because again, people can pull their LP at any time. It's their LP, right? It's not ours. They're just staking it, and we're giving rewards for staking it. So at any point, if the rewards are below someone's liking, they're more than welcome, again, if they would like, to pull it and then no longer provide LP. The only reason that statement's in there is just so we can say, hey, if we have to raise it or lower it at any point due to some business decision or the scaling of the business, if we grow to a certain point and, at some point we need to kick a different percentage over to one pool, or ink dies at some point, whatever it may be, we have to be able to cover our back end there at some point is essentially what that is.
Gotcha. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Now let's get into the bridge valve. Go ahead, man.
I want to ask a question on that. Yeah. So can you explain how the LP that you guys have is different than like a regular bridge where it stores it in like a centralized?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And so the way that most bridges, and I say most bridges because there are a few different structures out there. You have we're going to build the intermediary chain approach, which a few of our competitors have done. It's not very scalable because you have to, again, you're building essentially a different blockchain for every connection, which is not necessarily the most scalable approach there. The traditional method is the bridging liquidity pools that you're kind of getting at here. And that's where a lot of these hacks, like the Horizon bridge hack that essentially cost Harmony blockchain its life. And then you had a couple other large bridge hacks like the Binance one also attack bridge liquidity pools. Those bridging liquidity pools are not hosted on DEXs. They're hosted by the bridge. They're out in the blockchain ether. They're much less protected and battle tested, I would say, than the contracts that you'll find on a DEX that has had millions and millions of swaps happen on it over time, like a Trader Joe or something like that, where you're going to find those contracts, unless there's something malicious in the contract, those platforms are fairly airtight. Again, nothing is 100% secure. If you know a developer, they're going to tell you that. That's one of the first things they'll teach you. But they're much more battle tested than a bridge building their own entity to host liquidity, right? And that's where a lot of the attack vectors come in. So hosting that bridge liquidity out there in the blockchain ether is where you have a lot of problems. And so we don't use bridging liquidity pools with Cryptolink. The paper, that's the beauty of the burn and mint model. And so you just swap in and out of paper on the dexes that we exist on. Again, battle tested dexes, dexes that have been around for a long time, Trader Joe's, pancake swaps, dexes like that have been around for a minute, that have a good reputation. Paper liquidity exists on those dexes, and then we just burn, and we can send the signal to burn and mint the paper across the chain into your wallet. And the previous concern with that structure, again, that structure eliminates bridging liquidity pools, which is phenomenal because it takes away so many attack vectors that a bad actor can go after and try to steal the bridge's liquidity, which they can't do with this system. Now, what it does raise concerns in the centralization aspect when you have a burn and mint. Obviously, a burn and mint means there is a mint, right? That means mint function on. That means protocol can, in theory, if it's centralized, mint bridging token into infinity and rug the liquidity pools that way, which is why we built the decentralized validator network on top to then kind of combat both of those problems and kind of make them both go away, to where now, again, the bridges, it goes through a decentralized validator network. It has to pass through all of them. They all have to agree that, yes, this is true and that it's okay. And then it goes through the bridge and we can burn and mint the tokens and things like that. So that was kind of how we combated both the bridge liquidity problem, like Hodlnomics was talking about, which is a great question, and then kind of parlaying that into the centralization concerns for the burn and mint solution to that problem. We kind of have both of those covered.
Yeah. And building off what Hodlnomics said, so you guys run a proof of stake and a proof of authority model. And so, most people are very familiar with proof of stake, but with proof of authority, it's like when you have, I believe it was a small amount of nodes approving transactions. And in this model that you created for bridge approval, well, to approve transactions through bridges, could you kind of explain how those two systems coincide with each other and how it's used to prevent a 51% attack?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it actually, there's 4 layers at the end of the day. We just haven't started filling out the other 2 layers yet, right? So we have our proof of stake layer, like we talked about. And then we have the layer that we run, if you want to call that proof of authority, that works. But that's our layer, I guess, where we do validate our own transactions as well. We run our own little validators in there as well. Those are no rewards as well. The proof of stake is the only one I'm going to talk about that gets rewards back. The other 3 are all just pure security reasons. And then we also have a proof of reputation layer that will be available to, we're figuring out a system for this, but we'd like audit companies and larger entities in that techie sphere to run those, to prove that we're a good actor and our bridge is acting well all the time, and to prove that they're a good actor as well in the audit sphere and things like that. So we're trying to find ways to incentivize other characters to run just a validator, just to help us decentralize, just to help secure it even more. That's another layer. And then the 4th layer is we'd like any of our partners or integrators who don't run a validator proof of stake, they can run we don't have a name for this necessarily, but just they can run a no stake, no reward validator to help decentralize and help secure the network that they're bringing onto their platform. So if they're going to bring the widget on, and let's say they don't want to run a validator, but they do want the widget on their site, we would prefer they run a no stake, no reward validator on a VPS, just to increase the security, 1, for us, and 2, give them peace of mind that the piece of technology they're integrating, they have a say in validating that. And so all 4 of those layers do have to pass in order to constitute a positive bridging transaction. So we can't have one layer lie and get it to go through. It has to pass all 4.
Yeah, I notice those different layers you have, from the Cryptolink validator to industry validator,
yep,
to the POS community validators. So one thing that sparked a question in my mind was, so with the industry validators, I noticed that you guys have some pretty significant partnerships already. You have the Khaos blockchain, Cardinal House, KC Consulting, and the Pantheon. Do you guys are you guys VC funded by chance? This first question.
Yeah, no, great question. We are not VC funded. So that's a great question. I always like to point this out to everybody. We're 100% bootstrap from the ground up. Like I said, no token pre-sales or ICOs or anything like that. So we didn't have any team funding there. And we also didn't have any team allocated tokens or anything like that. And we also didn't get VC funding. So this is all, everything we do is up to the point where we're starting to drive revenue now that we have our fees turned on. Up to that point was completely out of pocket and just bootstrap.
Yeah, that's good. You know, what's really cool about this market is we're seeing a shift from, you know, the VC funded to just, you know, community run projects. What we see on Pulsechain is we have, you know, pDAI, atropa, and all these cool tokens, and they're not necessarily VC funded. And when they're launched, the tokens are out there in circulation. On Ethereum blockchain, projects are dumping left and right. Influencers are dumping their bags. It's going crazy. And so maybe a big theme of this market is, you know, no VC funding and just a straight clear cut project. And this started with Pepe. Pepe was the first one, and it's great to see you guys are doing this. Pantheon is not a VC funded project, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole plethora of new projects to come down the road. So that leads me into my next question. So we have traditional decentralized exchanges that are getting to cross-chain interoperability, SushiSwap, Uniswap, Layer 0. Then we have your project, your new added utility through the paper token bridge exchange. In your opinion, why is your project better than the traditional cross-chain decentralized protocols?
A few different reasons, right? So we pride ourselves on three main things, and that's speed. Obviously, the one thing that Huddle mentioned a few moments ago is that he tested the speeds on it and it blew him away, right? And that's something we like to. We do like to champion that. That's something that we do probably the best in the entire market. Not probably, we do it the best. I've never seen another bridge that is as fast as us. So speed is somewhere we win big time. Security, again, to double back on the liquidity, no bridge liquidity and the decentralization aspect of it, we have security covered in two different ways there, as opposed to one or the other ways, which you see a lot of those solutions choose. And then scalability, that's the third one that I think is overlooked now because we're so early in cross-chain, but people will start that hairy mess will start to unravel itself over the next few years as you have new blockchains popping up, subnets that pop up. You know, companies are going to launch their own blockchains. The gaming companies are going to launch their own blockchains for games, right? You can't throw Cyberpunk on the Ethereum blockchain. It would break the system. Are you kidding me? So like they're going to have their own chains and things like that. So scalability is really going to rear its ugly head when we get to that point in a few years where you get a lot of enterprise adoption, you get a lot of these new blockchains popping up for very specific reasons, where all of a sudden these bridges have to really start connecting to more and more blockchains. And you'll start to see, I think, a little bit of a problem with the way that their structures are set up, where, again, some of them are building entire cross-chain blockchains, if you will, which are chains in between the chains, which, again, that creates a scalability issue within itself. So, again, the scalability is the third thing that we really like to champion ourselves on. So I really think that, again, the three S's, speed, security, scalability, those are the three things we win big time on. And then from a integrator's perspective and standpoint, if you're B2B, again, Huddle could hopefully attest to this, but we like to, again, think of ourselves as the most accessible team in all of crypto, Web3, DeFi, whatever you want to say it, right? So if you have problems with your integration, we're going to be on top of it, right? If you want to, again, you can come to us and knowing you kind of want cross-chain, but you don't really know what you want, and you could just tell us what your project is, tell us what you do, and we'll find the solution for you, right? We're not kind of closed off behind, again, no VC funding means we don't have 1,000 employees. You know what I mean? It's 5 of us, just 5 guys at the moment. So all we can do is, again, have these personable relationships with every single one of our integrations. Again, at some point, we're going to have to scale with more people, But right now, that's a huge win, I think, as well, as we're incredibly accessible as an executive team. You could reach our founder and lead developer and with any development questions essentially at any time of the day. He's over in Europe, but I don't know if he sleeps. So I think he's just up around the clock, like most developers are. And you can get a hold of Cletus and I essentially around the clock as well. So again, that's the other thing I think we win at, that I know a lot of these larger entities in Web3, that especially the VC funded ones that had the ability to go out and staff a bunch of people. You know what happens when companies scale, right? Things start to get lost in the wash. It becomes very hard as maybe even a smaller integration to get the integration help or support, tech support that you need to make this thing work. And that's what we can offer you, especially right now.
Awesome. Go ahead, Autonomics.
Yeah, definitely. I want to kind of piggyback on that. I have been honestly kind of amazed at how quickly they were able to set everything up. I mean, we're going to be launching tomorrow. Really, the only thing that they needed to wait on was for me to get the liquidity in there, right? Which I had to, for the Pantheon, we had to provide 25K in liquidity. Once I got that, I mean, it was like a couple days for them to get it set up and going, which honestly kind of blew my mind, because if you think about some of these other projects that talk about their bridges and stuff that got, millions in sacrifice money, ICO money, whatever the case may be, and they don't have as good of a product or nothing yet, it just kind of is a testament to how quickly they can set this stuff up. And then they're also going to be coming up with, I think, Base, ETH, and Arbitrum. Is that right? Coming up here soon?
Yep.
Yeah,
so Base is live right now, so we can do reservations on Base right now, but ETH is going next week, which I want to get into a little bit later on. But that's exciting as well, man. But yeah, thank you for the kind words, Otto. I appreciate it, man. That's something we pride ourselves on. We want to be the fastest, most accessible people in the space, because again, that's how you create friends. That's how your friends then start telling other people about you, right? Again, we know what makes good business, and we also know what makes good tech, so we can do both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I really want to put out there is, the Pulsechain bridge has had scalability issues before with so many transactions going through, and it's awesome to see Holonomics and the PRC Pantheon come on and work with you guys to bring this technology to Pulsechain, because there's going to come a time in the future where people want to come to Pulsechain. People want to get into some of these tokens. It's like, token bonanza over here. And when the Pulsechain bridge is congested, then having this other option is going to be extremely huge. And also, if you're a PRC Pantheon NFT holder, it's going to be lucrative because you're going to benefit off of this. And in my opinion, it's a win-win model for everybody. Now, one thing I got to ask you about NFTs going across the bridge. I know you guys been talking about it. Have you guys been getting into bridging NFTs? Like, let's say,
yeah, so we're going to do that. We actually have an ERC 721 bridgeable extension. I'm glad you asked that. We built that. That's something that Atlas did really early on, like back last November, I think it was. And it was for our own NFT collection. And it's funny you bring this up, because I've been checking comments, and one of our community members, BTK, called me out there in comments. He got me. I forgot something in the ink world, and I should have mentioned it. So it does ink. Another thing that we use ink for is to activate our NFTs, which is a cross-chain NFT collection. And what they do is they give discounts on our any to any swap. So wherever you hold them on the source chain, it gives you discounts on that source chain from our any to any fees, which is pretty cool. So yeah, thank you, Billy, for pointing that out, man. I appreciate that. But with again, massive ecosystem. Sometimes things slip the mind, so I appreciate you, Billy. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is it's not just limited to tokens. We can do NFTs as well. Again, kind of to reel it all the way back to that base point of messaging, right? Just cross-chain messaging. Let your imagination run wild, right? Again, the NFTs are just another portion of that, and we can slap an ERC 721 bridgeable extension on either an already minted NFT collection, in which case it would just use a wrapper contract that we'd have to build, and then it would use the bridge to send and receive the messages to unlock and lock things out of the wrapper contract. But if you haven't minted your collection yet, we could slap it on before it's minted, and it actually those NFTs can be burned and minted across chains and just kind of travel freely, which is really cool. Again, people, I'm not a gamified mint guy that comes up with that stuff, but I know a lot of people are into that, and a lot of really crazy creative things have been made with NFTs. So again, people's imaginations can run wild with the cross-chain NFTs, and then we can also do cross-chain mints as well, right? So maybe you don't necessarily need the widget on your site, but hey, you're minting an NFT collection and you want people to be able to directly hit the mint button, but input BNB, but this collection's on Pulse and you want pDAI, right? So, okay, how can we do that? Well, we're just going to set it up so for the user, they put in BNB, they have BNB in their wallet, they hit swap, and in the background, it's actually the any-to-any widget working with a different front end face, and then it's going to mint your NFT with pDAI in the background. So pretty cool stuff that we can do. Again, NFT sphere, token sphere, social media, it can be anything essentially.
Okay, awesome. Now, I got a really big question I want to ask you. That big news coming in the Hex and Pulsechain community. So there's a developer named Dipcatcher. We just had news that a Hex address has been added to a USDT blacklist that dates back to March 17, 2021. Speculation that there's more wallets getting blacklisted from USDT. And there's also speculation that this might be the case for USDC. Wally, in your opinion, with stablecoins blacklisting certain tokens, do you think this is going to impact what you guys are doing over at Cryptolink?
Wow, that is a very interesting question. So when you say when they say they're blacklisting, what does that mean when USDT blacklists an address then?
So basically, they're saying that you can't swap from that token to another. So this goes back into why we're so big on pDAI, because there's keys to USDT, there's keys to USDC. They can basically turn off access to your stablecoins in your wallet, and it can also block stablecoins at the bridge. In your opinion, do you think Cryptolink could possibly be a solution around this?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's something that we're not in the stablecoin game, so to speak, right? We don't have a token, nor are we going to create one that we're pegging to $1 and holding there or anything like that. Again, pDAI and other people are working on doing things like that. But yeah, I think that it's possible that we can alleviate, again, whether it's pDAI on Pulse or another smaller stable that's, trying to get around these types of issues on Binance, maybe being, again, the bridge connecting the two. If we don't have some large entity like a USDT or a USDC, a circle, right, with USDC, which has billions of dollars they have the money to launch on all of these chains with the liquidity, and now they're the big pop stable coin just because they had the money to do so, right? So I do see what you're saying, where maybe some of these smaller stables across the chains will have to start playing a larger role. And if that's the case, I do think that we can help facilitate the to and from between a lot of those ones. If USDT and USDC want to, again, like, we don't have a partnership with any of those stable coins. We're just facilitating the transfer. So if they want to blacklist people that have paper, or they want to blacklist paper, then I don't know what to tell them. You know what I mean? Because that's just, again, we're decentralized. Like, it's a bridging utility token. Like, they're so far out in left field if they were ever to do that. So again, I'm not sure where that's a very interesting. I'm going to look into all of that now. And now that you brought it to my attention, because that's really fascinating. I don't know 100% again, like, what exactly that means, but I guess we'll have to dig into that.
So basically what it means is if you try to swap from USDT directly to Hex, they're not going to let you do it. So they can just do it on any token.
Okay.
Now, Hodlnomics, I want to bring you up here. What's your opinions on this? What's going on with USDT and Hex? Because Hex is it's probably one of the main tokens in the Pulsechain community.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say this is definitely concerning for Pulsechain, and anybody who's holding on USDT or USDC on Pulsechain might want to swap it for DAI for sure, because who knows what's going to happen with that. But yeah, I think this also just reiterates the importance of pDAI and kind of what's going on there. And I mean, to think that some sort of decentralized stablecoin wasn't in the game theory and the game plan for Pulsechain is, I mean, there's got to be something that they were thinking, and obviously, like, pDAI seems to make the most sense. So I mean, yeah, I think this is just bullish for pDAI. Honestly, that's what I think when I see this.
Absolutely. And you know how I conceptualize this, and this is where it comes to the any to any swap is, you know, that liquidity pool between USDT and Hex is going to be impacted, but with the any to any swap, it's going to find some sort of routed pair so that you can get the destination token. So in my opinion, I think the technology that CryptoLink is bringing on is going to be a solution when we start to see these centralized stable coins come in and try to impact the market, because this isn't going to be the last token we see. This is going to happen to Hex. This could happen to PLS and PLX. I'm not saying it will. It's a possibility. And so I just want to throw it out there that what CryptoLink is offering is a really cool route around this type of stuff. So cool. Now moving on. So big question I want to ask you. Everyone here on this channel knows I love talking about layer zero. I've been obsessed with it, just like I've been obsessed with pDAI. We got layer zero coming out. We got the connection of all these blockchains. There's been 50 partnerships between layer zero and other blockchains like Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, Phantom, a whole plethora, except for one blockchain, the Pulsechain. Wally, in your opinion, are you a main competitor to layer zero? And do you think you guys can put up a fight or a competition with them in the next bull market?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I'll be completely honest, they're absolutely on our competitors board, right? We track competitors and their, you know, what they're doing and their movements, and just like any other business does, and they're absolutely up there. I mean, are they the Goliath? You know, we're David to their Goliath? Absolutely. There's no doubt that they are the elephant in the room. But you know, we're not afraid, and that doesn't stop us from building. Like we were chatting about, you know, privately before this, that there's not just one winner in certain verticals. There's multiple winners. You know, there's a few different search engines. There's not 50 search engines that survive, but there's a few, right? There's more than one, and they all serve their different purposes. There's different social media networks that serve their different purposes. There's different software companies that provide softwares that maybe rhyme or look the same, but provide slightly different services, right? It's why there's different blockchains. So I think that cross-chain is no different. You know, there's going to be different cross-chain winners in this space. And I absolutely think that the technology we have is more than capable of competing with them. Again, if they wanted to go toe to toe and do a live stream, you know, bring their marketing guy up here, we could do a live stream and swap live on stream, and they wouldn't want to do that, right? And I'm very confident in saying that. Now, the elephant in the room is the money, right? They have a ton of money, man. They have a ton of money to market, a ton of money to make these connections. I'm sure, you know, they're at every conference. They have flying teams out to every conference. They're speaking at conferences. Again, I tip my cap to them. They've done a phenomenal job thus far without having any major hiccups. Like, again, we had another major competitor take a huge spill this summer. Obviously just not a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, I guess at this point, but which really hurt the Phantom blockchain. So I think it's interesting. I think you'll see a lot of chains start to distance themselves from one solution, as like Phantom got really dinged by what happened with that other bridge, right? So, you know, I think you'll see a lot of them start to distance themselves from making, you know, too much of a connection with one cross-chain solution. But I do think that we absolutely can compete in that sphere next bull market, and it starts with the integrations. That's what we're doing. We're boots on the ground as a team, trying to get these integrations, trying to get, you know, platforms like PRC Pantheon and guys like Hodl to believe in us, right, and believe in the tech and try it out for himself and say, hey, holy cow, this is, you know, these guys are real and this is real stuff, you know, and then go ahead and integrate it. Because again, the more integrations we have, the better off we are. So that's how we kind of view it. It's a little bit of a territory game against some of those big, you know, the big dogs in the space, but, you know, they're leaving out a ton of, again, small but not insignificant players in this space, like the PRC Pantheons of the world, that maybe, again, layer zero might not bat an eyelash at in terms of trying to go integrate with, but we're all about it, right? We want all of the integrations. So, you know, that might be a little bit of what our positioning is, championing the small guy right now, which is what we are as well. But again, we're going to carve out our own piece just like they will.
Awesome. No, really great response. And go ahead, Holonomics.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to comment back on that a little bit here too. So, I mean, it kind of reminds me, I mean, and again, I don't know if it's much about layer zero, but kind of reminds me what Polkadot was, like a whole new blockchain for interoperability and stuff. It just, I mean, sure, maybe it's going to do well, but you know, in my opinion, the ones that are very well funded, they you know, we'll see how it goes, but they're pump and dumps, right? Those people who are funding them want their money back. And I mean, I've talked to people who have these types of companies and stuff. A lot of them don't even believe in the blockchain, right? So, you know, not having that type of funding, not having those what, you know, that heaviness, that weight on top of it, I think could be a good thing, because you know, that's going to bring things, they could potentially bring things down and slow it down, versus kind of like you said earlier, it's just you guys are fast, you move quickly. And I mean, as far as I've seen on the bridging side, there's not anything better. So I mean, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, the guys who built the airplanes, right? I think it was the Wright brothers. They like didn't have any funding. You can go look up that story. They had no money. They were just passionate. They wanted it more than the people who had all the money. There was like a big race to see who could build the airplane the fastest. It turns out it was the guys who didn't have any money. They just wanted it more, right? So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But a lot of these like super well funded, well marketed projects honestly are big red flags to me to begin with.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's interesting that you make a good point that Atlas, our founder, and you know the CEO, the guy who leads the meetings, who is our leader on our team, you know, he makes that point all the time, and it's awesome to hear Hodl kind of echo that point, which is, you know, they want their money back at some point. You know, if you are VC funded, don't forget that they will come knocking for their money back, which means you have to find a way to make money quickly and get them their money back, which can be done in a plethora of ways. But I think that's where again, if you wanted to put another hyphen in the list of why I think we can succeed, is we, again, not only are more nimble than some of the larger players, but I think that we're going to be able to keep the costs down on bridging compared to a lot of them in the future. Because as the VCs want their money back, there's going to have to be maybe a hike in fees or something like that. They're going to have to make it somehow, right? And we're not beholden to those types of money overlords, if you will. So that's just another perk, another benefit of being bootstrapped. Again, it comes with plenty ups and downs, right? We've seen the woes of it as well. It's not easy. It's tough, and sometimes things are take a long time because you're bootstrapped and stuff. But I think it's well worth it at the end of the day, for sure.
Awesome. So we got a launch on the Ethereum blockchain coming up. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about it. Tell us about it, what to expect. If you want to be a validator, what's the process, whole 9 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. Super pumped about this. So Ethereum is the big one. Obviously, that's where most of the money resides in crypto. So everybody's always been asking, when you're getting into Ethereum. Backstory on that, why we weren't on Ethereum before. We actually paid source gas for bridging transactions for anybody that used it the last year up to about a couple months ago. So we, not only was our bridge free as a proof of concept, but we kind of like paid you to use it. It's an interesting structure, but it got us a lot of fans early on. And obviously we couldn't just afford to pay out of pocket for Ethereum gas, so we couldn't launch there. It wasn't a technical issue at all. But now the time has come. It's time to get over to Ethereum, and it's time to capitalize on the liquidity that is on Ethereum and try to, get in the mix over there. And I think it's going to really benefit the Pulse community as well, because again, where is a lot of the money ever to any of the chains? Where does the money come from? It comes from Ethereum. It goes into Ethereum and then leaves Ethereum, goes to all the alts, and then it comes back to Ethereum and goes back out the other way, right? That's generally the flow of things. So it benefits Pulse and any of the other chains that we're on to get to Ethereum. That is happening on Monday. Validator reservations go live on Monday, and I don't know if you can go. Well, I guess you'd have to connect your wallet to the DApp, I think, to see it, which is unfortunate. But if you do go to Cryptolink.tech, anybody in the crowd, and you go to the little staking button in the top left-hand corner, that's where it goes live at, and it'll be under validator reservations. It's pretty easy to find in there in the tabs. It's just reservations or validator reservations. I can't remember. So in that tab, the Ethereum side will go live, which is really cool. And we are doing a little bit of a different, yep, perfect. It'll just go on the validators once you do all that, and we'll be able to see all of that good stuff. But yeah, going live on Monday. Little bit of a different system. Those of you who have a Pulse validator or you're involved in that, you know the structure is generally 2 Genesis, which at 10K stake, and then it goes into 2 tier 1s at 25K stake. So if you go up to the validators tab right up there, Chris, yep, perfect. So this is where you will be able to stake for that Ethereum validator when that goes live on Monday. So this is where you'll do it. You'll go and provide paper Ethereum, paper ETH LP on the DEX that we are launching paper on. And then you'll come back with the LP tokens. You'll stake those right here on the DApp dashboard to reserve your validator. And for Ethereum, like I said, we're doing a different system. We're actually doing 10 Genesis tiers at 10K stake because again, we want to drive liquidity on Ethereum for larger swaps, because obviously you need to have more liquidity on Ethereum than you do on other chains for obvious reasons. And we also want to make it more accessible. I mean, everybody wants a piece of Ethereum. Everybody's been asking us win Ethereum for the last year. And we know that going to 10K straight to the 25K cuts a large portion of our own community off from an opportunity at it. And it cuts some other people off that we know that are excited about it as well. So we're doing 10 10K validators on Ethereum, which is, I mean, again, unprecedented for us, but we wanted to make it more accessible. And any validator that is up and running on Ethereum, when the third validator launches or reserves, that's when we launch. The chain goes live on Ethereum, and you start collecting your share of the 20% of rewards that go back to the validator pool. So incredibly cool stuff there. And again, benefits the Pulse community. If we're up to tier 1, or I think we're still on tier 1 for Pulse there. We already did Genesis at 10K. We're up to 25K. If that 25K is too steep of a price to get in on Pulse, and you want to get in on Ethereum for 10K, that, if you're a Pulse person, that can benefit you too. If you think there's a lot of volume going from Ethereum to Pulsechain and you believe in that, hey man, it's not a bad opportunity to get involved over on the ETH side of things as well. So we're super excited about that, and that's going live on Monday. So again, if you have any questions on how to go about that, just reach out to the Cryptolink team on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, Discord, any of the places. If you go to our X account and click our link tree, it has all of our links in there. It has a link to our docs, all that good stuff. And you could always set up a meeting with us on our website. So on the Cryptolink landing page at the bottom of the screen there, you can schedule a discovery call, and we'll walk you through the process if you need to. So it's on the landing page. If you go hit the Cryptolink logo at the top left there, Chris, perfect. And then go right to the bottom of that screen all the way, and you can schedule a discovery call right there in that big box. Start building cross-chain products. So yeah, if you do that, we can walk you through the process of a validator as well. And reserving is pretty easy. Like I said, if you're into DeFi, if you know how to swap and stake and do all of that good stuff, reserving your validator is going to be the easy part. The part that requires just a little bit of learning and just a little bit of, I don't even want to say hoops because it's really not, but just a few steps along the way is actually setting up the validator, in which, we have a list of different VPS services that, we recommend. Then we'll get you set up on a VPS. We'll get that validator running, and we'll get you validating transactions. And once it's up and running, then you're good to go. And, we keep you in validator chats just in case we have to push updates or anything like that. We do auto update our validators, so all of them are set up to auto update, but we like to keep our validators close in a chat just in case there's some sort of problem with that, or if one of them shuts down. But yeah, that's the news with Ethereum. Super pumped about that. I see John Seltzer is asking, is Pulse the Pulse bridge, or is the bridge on Pulse launching tomorrow? I do want to just comment on that. We're looking at, Cletus told me that our validators are staked. We're good to go. We're looking at within the next 48 hours, it's going live for sure, in terms of being on Pulse and having the bridge live to and from Pulse. That's what Cletus told me right before this. So that's what you guys can expect. It'll either be tomorrow, Friday, or Saturday. I'm not sure what is going on with the devs on the holdup on that one, but I'm sure it's something smaller, whatever it may be. The other one thing I do want to... Oh, go ahead, Huddle. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we do actually have a launch party tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. And so there's a tweet that I have on my Twitter. It's going to be a Spaces with Mark Powers.
Okay, cool.
So the devs were like, yeah, go ahead, let's send it. So, I mean,
Okay,
Sounds
cool.
like we should be good.
Hey, you probably know more. The devs are in dev zone, and you probably talked to more devs this week than I have. I've been in the media bubble. We're working on some really cool stuff on the media side of things, which is a little bit off topic for this conversation, but maybe something that you're interested in, Kris. We'll have to talk privately about it at some point. But that's something that I'm kind of doing. Obviously, marketing in the space it's tough, man. It's not easy, and frankly, it's almost impossible to try to sell somebody something in this space anymore, especially businesses. So we're trying a slightly different approach to it. So that's what my head's been buried in. But hey, if Hodl says we're good to have the launch party tomorrow, then we're having the launch party tomorrow, and we're rolling with it. And I'm sure it'll be good to go. So I trust in our devs. I trust in their devs. I'm sure sure everything will be good. Like I said, validators are staked, so there's really nothing holding it up. I'm sure it's probably just there you go, Cletus. We're expected to launch tomorrow. It's probably just a push of the button, and we're waiting for the party. That's probably what we're waiting for, to be honest with you. So
hopefully. But yeah, there's also a question: be able to bridge from ETH. So I would guess, and we'll have Cletus actually probably respond if he's watching down there. I mean, so the validators are going to be staking on Monday. It took us, like from the time I staked, like 3-4 days for them to set it up. So I would imagine ETH will be ready probably by next week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so at the latest.
Just reliant on those validators getting staked. And like you said, Hodl, once the 3 are staked, it'll just be a couple days after that for ETH. But
so you only need 3. You don't need all 10.
Don't need all 10. 10, again, those 10 are there, though, for the taking, but 3 turns the chain on, technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will be getting an ETH validator as well, I think, because you actually get paid on whenever it goes out of the chain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think ETH is going to be where a lot of the value is at with this. And so I'm excited for that. And yeah, I mean, that's why I really like the paper token. I'll just show that one here really quick, because anytime you got to buy or you want to do one of these validators, you have to get the paper token. And there's still some money chains that got to be set up. There's Base, ETH, Arbitrum, Optimism. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think. And I think as more people start kind of, using it and seeing it, see how fast it is, they're going to want to kind of, get a little piece of it. So I like paper. It just launched on Pulsechain the other day. So yeah, definitely go take a look at that if you guys are interested.
Yeah, no, this is probably one of the coolest projects. And the one thing I love about the paper token is accessibility. This is going to be one of the few tokens where it's going to be on multiple blockchains, from Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain to Pulsechain. And it's also a great arbitrage opportunity. So if you guys want to look at liquidity pools, buy one at a higher price liquidity pool and sell it at a buy at a lower price liquidity pool and sell at a higher price liquidity pool. You don't want to do the other way because you lose money. Then it's a great way to make money and take advantage of this ecosystem. And there's so many opportunities behind this. So really, really great information. Hodlnomics, do you have any more questions?
No, I think they covered all of it. I mean, I appreciate it. I'm excited for tomorrow. And that was it for me.
Awesome. So Wally, any last thoughts? I'm out of questions. That was a really great breakdown of this project. We talked about some really good stuff. Is there anything else you want to add or anything else you want to say?
Okay, we covered a lot, man. I don't want to bombard people with too much, but I will say that we have a lot in the work. And again, something I was talking to you about before the show is that we're a 5-man team. So we have 2 of those are developers. We have a backlog of a lot of great ideas and plans. It doesn't stop at any to any, right? We're just, building this out, really seeing it out to the fullest right now until we can start to let that exist on its own. And start to build out on its own, and then we'll be doing some other things. So again, there's always going to be new things going on in CryptoLink, and if you're a project out there, again, I tell everybody this: if you don't know what you need, but you're interested even in cross chain, that it's gonna, again, you think it's going to be the theme of the next bull, or it's the next wave, or whatever it may be, because again, it probably is. Then just reach out to us, schedule that discovery call on the website, like I said, because we'll have the conversation and we'll find the best fit for you. You might think you want one thing, but we've seen and had so many conversations that we might say, hey, that actually will hurt your ecosystem more than it'll help it. But hey, here's a better cross-chain solution over here that we can help you with that'll accomplish the same goals. So that's kind of what we do. We just want to build solutions for people and again, expands to as many chains as the market wants us to expand to. And One last thing I'll throw out there is we didn't mention it, but we can go non-EVM. So again, if there's a bunch of Solana cats out there or Cardano people out there listening to this that are, you know, fiending for a fast bridge, it's doable. We just need to see the demand because it takes a small bit of dev work to build a driver for that chain, but it's easily deployable. It's not a huge issue. So again, we're not even pigeonholed to EVM or non-EVM. We can do it all. So, but Kris, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having us on, brother. This was super cool, and thank you to everybody listening. And Hodl, it was nice to chat with you again, brother. I'm sure we'll have plenty of more chats in the future. And yeah, man, I'm happy to come back on anytime you want to talk CryptoLink stuff. So
absolutely, we definitely need to get you back on after the ETH launch and talk a little bit about more and get more into this. You know, you have NFT games and stuff. It's a lot of information, so we got to break down multiple streams. Holonomics, any last thoughts on PRC Pantheon or anything you want to bring up?
No, yeah, just go check out the Pantheon on the secondary market. Beatbox NFTs. I think the floors right now is about 650 PLS. So check that out if you guys are interested. Appreciate all the support as well. Thank you, Kris, for everything. And Wally, you guys over at CryptoLink have been awesome. Excited to keep working with you, and let's keep it moving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, so I got all the socials in the description. I'll add Holonomics right after this. Please follow CryptoLink on x.com. Follow Holonomics. Keep up with the projects. There's always going to be new information coming into the space, and we're the guys here to tell you about it. So definitely exciting. Holonomics, thank you for being an awesome co-host. Wally, thank you for coming on and doing this interview because I think it's going to be extremely beneficial for the entire Pulsechain community and also the entire crypto community. So definitely need to do it again, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Cheers.
Likewise. You'll have a good one.